Remember back in the day when if you got hungry, you could always resort to one of these guys. 100-calorie snack pack, full of sugar and refined stuff, junk food, but, you know, it does in a pinch, right? Unfortunately, when you're on a low-carb diet, that's out. You can't eat that stuff anymore. You gotta eat healthy foods. You gotta eat fats and proteins and veggies and basically real foods, which kind of means sausages and things like real dairy, butter, and you've got, you know, not asparagus, artichokes and onions and what have you. Basically, real stuff. And when you cook this food, you're left with messes like this. Hope I don't spill on myself. So this is gross. This is annoying. This is a lot harder than this. And low carbers trapped in a high carb world face situations like this all the time. Our food is more expensive, it's harder to cook, it's harder to clean. And look, I'm forever going to be a low carb dieter because I believe in the science. I mean, I read Gary Taubes' book, Good Calories, Bad Calories, back in 2007, and it convinced me to change my, my entire life. I'm now basically creating books about it and blogging about it because I think the ideas are so powerful. Unfortunately, you know, while there are a lot of amazing books that tell you why it's good and how to do it and how to count carbs and why carbs mess with insulin and all that stuff that I'm sure you already know, or at least you're beginning to learn about, there's no single resource that helps you transition from believing in low carb to doing it better, cheaper, and easier. Essentially, once you wake up from your food pyramid coma, as I call it, you know, what do you do next? I've tried to outline, get my paper here, some of the main challenges that we face in this book. Essentially, there are 8 main challenges, and what this book does is systematically probes these constraints and attempts to blow them away. It gives you resources, tools, and even better, new ways of thinking about old problems, new ways of reconceiving these things that are getting in your way, so you can do this and make it less stressful and more cost-effective in general. So, listen, I mean, my qualifications, I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist. I've only been doing this diet for 3 years, but I am a Yale University educated writer. I've read a lot about this stuff myself, and you know, I'm an out-of-the-Wheaties box thinker, as you know, trying to brand myself here. Which means that, you know, I wrote for Mel Brooks when I was doing TV writing. I've written about 25,000 articles for the web. I am probably the single most prolific web writer in internet history. How that qualifies me to be a low-carb diet specialist, I don't know. But, you know, I do think differently, and I feel like I can help you guys out there think about this more constructively, these challenges. And so basically, there's 8 main challenges that we face, at least 8 of them. The first one is, and the book basically goes through these challenges one by one and blows them away. It gives you these tools, strategies, and resources to deal with them. So the first chapter is, you know, are you dubious about low-carb science? Maybe you're worried that this is a fad diet. Maybe you're worried about the saturated fat in low-carb diets. Well, this chapter 1 kind of demystifies things, gives you references to people who have done the actual research, and boils down some basic arguments that you can use as talking points so you can, you know, make yourself feel more comfortable that this is a good way of eating. Chapter 2 deals with information overload. Now, you know, when you get on low-carb diets, all of a sudden, you know, you're no longer thinking just in terms of calories. You got to think about carbs. You got to think about what kinds of carbs are good. What about carb substitutes like sugar alcohols and stevia? I mean, how do these things affect your blood sugar and insulin? And on and on and on. And you can have debates. I'm sure you've had debates in forums online and with your friends in the low-carb world about how do you make sense of this? Obviously, I can't answer all those questions in this book, nor am I qualified to. But what I can do is give you some new ideas and resources to think about information better, to process it better, so you're not staying up late at night, you're not getting in angry debates and forums with random people, so you're able to get on with your life and live your life and not have to have it be about your diet all the time. Chapter 3 is about doubters and haters. You know, your doctor might think this is a fad diet, and he or she may not want to even have a discussion with you about it, and that's really frustrating, and I've been there. You know, your friends and family might think you're extreme, you're on a fad diet, they may make fun of you or tease you, eat pasta in front of you, who knows? So how do you deal with the doubters and haters? Chapter 3 gives you some ideas and tools. Chapter 4, sometimes the biggest enemy is yourself, right? You know, you face this feeling of like, I don't have the willpower to go on. Maybe you're addicted to carbohydrates and you pass a coffee, not a coffee shop, a Starbucks, and you gotta have one of those maple walnut scones, which I used to love eating. And they call out to you, and how do you resist? And basically all these self-destructive urges, how do you control them? Chapter 4 gives you new ways of thinking about this, new tools, new ideas, so you can control that. Chapter 5, this is the bulk. This is a huge problem is resource challenges. Low carb takes time, energy. Look at this, right? You know this. You've made this bacon and eggs in the morning every morning, right? This is just butter, but I'm sure you've had doing the dishes is a pain. So how do you deal with this? How do you make this diet less resource intensive, less costly? How can instead of eating boxes of pasta, we have to eat organic bison now? So how do we deal with it? How do we deal with that in an effective way without sacrificing quality? Chapter 6, maybe you have moral qualms about the diet. Maybe you're vegetarian or vegan, or you don't like eating animals, or meat grosses you out. Chapter 6 blows those constraints away. Chapter 7, what if you have problems losing weight on a low-carb diet? What if you've gained weight back? Now, I'm not a doctor, but I've really thought deeply about Gary Taubes' alternative theory about obesity called the lipophilia hypothesis, and I wrote a whole website about that called Why Low Carb Diets Work. But basically, I thought through the lens of this theory and spoke to Gary Taubes and some other people and compiled a list of 22 speculative reasons why low-carb diets might fail. This isn't advice, but you might find these ideas very interesting, and there's nothing out there like this list. In Chapter 8, Chapter 8 is, we all want to change the world, right? Once you find out about that you're a low-carb or trapped in a high-carb world, and we see the shadow of the food pyramid casts its dark shadow over all of us and over our communities. We want to do something about it, right? We want to get sugar out of our schools. We want to help change the world. Well, Chapter 8 discusses that. How can we do this effectively without making ourselves crazy? And then beyond that, we have 2 amazing bonus interviews. One with Fred Hahn of Serious Strength, and Fred is most low carbers don't know about Fred Hahn's slow burn training method, and if nothing else, if you get nothing out of this book but a deeper understanding of Fred's philosophy, it will change your life. I started doing slow burn 3 months ago, and it is, I haven't been this muscular and strong since college, and before I started doing slow burn, I was doing yoga all the time and running, and I switched just to working out half an hour a week, and not to brag, I'm pretty strong now, and I'm flexible too. So check out that bonus interview, will really be interesting. And the second bonus interview is with none other than Gary Taubes himself. This is Gary's kind of my hero in the low carb world. He's you might have heard of his books, Good Calories, Bad Calories, and the new book he's come out with called Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It. And he spoke to me. There's a 45-page interview in this book with Gary, and very fascinating topics, including his thoughts about why, what's the cause of anorexia, why do some people fail on low carb, and so on and so forth. So I invite you to check it out. I think the book will help people out there. It's intended to, and I'd love to hear from you, and just to try to make this world a little bit easier for us who've been trapped in a high carb world. So check it out and enjoy. Thanks.